fresh page here. I'm gonna open this public meeting. Our goal here in the next half hour is to try to give Bill a chance to kind of help us understand your job, responsibilities, what you do, what your department, just kind of a stat of what's going on in, because the last time I was a commissioner, I don't think your position reported directly to the commission. I don't recall it.
The person who had this job before I did, Henry Nip, I don't know what Henry did with, as far as, I know you had to have a contract signed by the commissioners and that kind of thing, but other than that, I don't know how much time he spent actually explaining or anything with the commissioners.
Okay. Well, why don't you start off today by giving us the big picture of what all your responsibilities entail?
So, fire mitigation, as the way I understand it, is to help landowners and the county mitigate the hazards and stuff that come with fire, and hopefully, how do I put this, prevent fires from hopefully burning structures. And what a big part of my job is doing grant proposals and getting grants to do these projects.
And what kind of land do you work on? State, federal, everything?
Basically, we can work on private, county, and state.
Private, county, and state.
We cannot do anything on federal.
It's too bad. Sometimes I think they need help.
I have quite a few contacts with the Forest Service because I'm a retired Forest Service. And we talk quite a lot back and forth, and they have some new people in place now that are starting to do more, because the old way of thinking with the Forest Service is kind of gone, which is probably a good thing, because it's opened it up for more logging, more projects of like fire mitigation, burning, that kind of thing.
Okay. So how do you identify projects and places?
Usually, I'll have a landowner contact me, and I'll go out and look at the property, and then if it's a big piece, say over 20 acres, we'll decide on how much I'm going to do, because if I do the whole 20 acres, that takes quite a bit of money. So I either have to apply for a grant or spend the money, like the Title III monies to do that project. The bigger projects, like let's say the North Kellogg project, I've been contacted by 3 different landowners. It came up to be about 100 acres. It's just in a spot where if a fire would start, a lot of structures like that are up against the hill in Kellogg would have the possibility of igniting and burning. So for that, I went and applied for a grant to do that project. And it's, we got that grant. That's one of them that we talked about earlier.
Mhm.
So we have a lot of, ownership in that, in that project. And so one of the biggest problems I've had with doing some of these projects is getting somebody that will actually bid and do the projects.
Now, are we cleaning up after logging and things, or what kind of things?
No. Basically what we're doing is we're going in and taking out, underbrush, thinning the small trees under mature timber.
The dead?
We take all the dead out. 90% of the time, we burn it in place because the ground's too steep to get a chipper or a machine in there to masticate.
So you're not selling timber or anything like that? Okay.
I've had quite a few people ask us to go in and take timber off their property. But the way the programs and the grants are set up, any marginal stuff that come back, or we take off that property, comes back to the program, it don't go to the landowner.
Okay. So have you had anybody have you even seen that yet? Or were they just wanting to take the trees, or?
I've got a couple, what I, told them, and just like I explained to you, that if we take it off, they don't get the money, it comes back to the program. And so I will give them names of people I know that do small logging jobs.
Yeah.
And I say, you contact them. If you want logged, then you log it first, and then I'll come back and see if there's anything we need to do. Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't.
Okay.
So do we have quite a bit of demand for that? Like, do we have to turn people down that are waiting in line to have us?
No. Most of the people that I deal with want the thick brush and just their trees thinned out, taking out the smaller trees. And, so so it's pretty easy to come into an agreement on what we're gonna do and how big of an area we're gonna do. There are some guidelines through Firewise and some other programs that we do follow, but a lot of these projects are a little bit bigger than those.
Now, do you have the equipment, or are you just a general contractor?
I do, everything's under contract.
Okay. So do you do it yourself, or do you farm it out to other individuals that actually do the work?
Other individuals.
Okay.
Is this a program that all Idaho counties have?
In the northern counties, yes. As the farther you go down through the state, down the southern part of the state, there's not as much need as there is from, let's say, the Salmon River.
Right. Okay.
One of the things that I've been told is we have one of the most active programs in the state. Right now, since I've only got 2 contractors signed up to do this work, we do about 100 acres a year. Back in like 2009, 2010, the county actually had 2 crews do this. The county had their own crews, and then plus contractors doing this. So on a good year for them, they do 300 to 400 acres a year.
So is the program growing or has it stayed the same?
There's about, it's growing. Tuesday, I talked to two different new landowners who want me to come look at their properties.
What's limiting us, the amount of grants or the availability of contractors to?
The availability of people who wanna work.
Now, do you advertise, or how's this, how do people know that we have this?
Service, you mean?
Yeah.
It's, right now, it's just been word of mouth, and people looking and seeing where we've worked. And they like what we've done, so they'll contact me. And then there's also, people will either go like into the state, Iowa Department of Lands office or the Forest Service office and ask questions, and they get my name out, or my name is my phone number, and talk about that program, talk about the program with them.
So are you trying to grow and do more acres a year, or are you just trying to maintain? What do you?
Right now, with the lack of people, just trying to maintain what we got going.
And how do you recruit contractors?
Well, that's the hard one, because you tell them you're looking for contractors, and they come in, and you tell them the requirements for the county, like the $1 million worth of liability, and
So they have to be bonded and, okay.
and then the workman's comp for any workers they have for them, that's working for them. And once they start checking into that, they're finding out that not so much the liability insurance is the thing that's messing them up with money wise, it's the workman's comp. Because workman's comp keeps going up every year.
Now, was this offered by the state of Idaho? Is that who kind of made this?
They're different grants through the state.
The grants all come through the state. The state administers them to Canada. I mean, they are kind of in between person between the feds and the county. So, and then a lot of the stuff has to go through, it goes through one department in the state of Idaho. I'm kind of lucky because the person that's the head of the Wild Urban Interface for the state of Idaho, his office is in Coeur d'Alene. And I can just send him an email, a text message, whatever, and say, hey, we need to talk. And usually within a couple hours of me doing that, we talk.
Is that tire?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's kind of over the grants that come to us. And then he has, in that group, there's the financial group that deals with our reimbursements, and making sure that we're following what we need to follow with the state.
Okay.
He comes out and looks at it too, isn't
He hasn't, he comes out like once a year and we kind of do it, but, he's so busy statewide doing, the Wild Land Urban Interface and some other things that they've assigned to him, that usually if, I need an inspection on a project, I I deal with the IDO and Cataldo. And either the warden or, the guy, there's the, state stewardship program, the guy that runs that in this area, he'll come out and do the inspection for us.
So does he inspect it after you're done, or okay, so you have to meet some kind of requirement with the Idaho?
Right.
That, okay, so it is kind of through the state where they govern, okay,
Cause there's the funding, so.
and the inspections.
And your position is entirely grant funded, right?
Right.
Okay. And how many hours a week is this position? I just forget my ignorance. Are you 20 hours or 40 or?
It all kind of depends on the time of year. Usually it's a 40-hour week.
Is it? Okay. Except when you're on grandpa duty.
Yeah.
You did mention you have grandkids.
Right.
I get you. I'm on number 7.
They keep you busy.
Yes, they do. Anything else you'd like to share with us about what all you've been doing, what you got going? I mean, how many different grants are you managing right now?
Right now there's 4. There's 4 grants, and then there's Title 3. We have 10 open projects in some form of being completed. Most of it is burning piles. One of our biggest hangups on burning in the valley is with the DEQ in Pinehurst. Because if you smoke in Pinehurst, you get shut down. Until the air clears. I try to stay away from Pinehurst, but can't do it.
So each project, are the grants land specific? Or do they say, you know, you get a grant and it's for this? Or are they land specific projects or grants, or how does that work? Or do you just do a grant for each land, each project you do?
So what I do is I do the proposal and send them a map of units, of where the units are gonna be at.
Okay.
And then, it's usually Tyre, who's the state rep, he will put a block around that. And I can do projects anywhere in that block with that grant. They're usually pretty site-specific grants, whereas Title III is anywhere in the county.
Any more questions, Jeff?
Oh, I think
Before I open it up for public questions, do you have anything else that you wanted to share, or anything else?
One of the big things for the county that's coming up, and it affects the way, like we'll get grants for fire mitigation, maybe some of the other stuff that the county's starting to do, is the county wildland protection plans, the CWPPs, are getting ready to expire. And so we need to start doing, updates. There is a possibility of getting a grant to do that. It won't, from what I understand, it doesn't open until March to do that, to put in for that grant. With this grant, with some of these grants, there's match, that the county has to match these grants. And some of them are 10%, and some of them are 20%.
Now since, you know, some of these lands are private, right? So can does the landowner chip in for, you know, if we have a grant that's 90% and we have, and do they chip in, can they chip in for that?
They can, but problem is with the way the program is set is if we have a contractor doing the work, is how do we pay them? Because they're under contract to the county.
But this wildland plan is going to expire, and by law, are we required to update that?
Yes.
Okay.
The other thing is with it, if it expires, let's say something happens and we have a big fire and a lot of, large, let's just say a large fire, and it costs us several $1 million to get it taken care of, we will not be able to apply to FEMA for assistance.
Okay, so who does this plan?
The last one that did this was the emergency services.
I sent you info on that the
That's
other
the
day.
one that you sent, but he said he was already
Hazard
on.
mitigation fund, it's, you create a hazard mitigation plan for the county, they do about every 10 years. And you identify all hazards in the county, floods, wildfire, slides, any kind of hazard that could happen on public land that could affect other public land or personal property. And then you come up with what that plan is, you identify specific projects that have to be done, what the estimated cost is, and then it goes to Susan Cleverly down in the state, in Boise, and her team reviews them, and they work with Tyre and other people that would do that kind of thing. If it's floods, it's different,
Okay.
And, they pick out which projects they are going to propose funding for, and they do it for like 3 years at a time. Every year you go and review your plan, you pick out what things are still out there, or you wanna add some more, or whatever. Or if you mitigated it yourself through the road department, maybe it needed new culverts or something, and they did it cause it got so bad, but we get funding, take that off, put on something else. It's a yearly thing. If it is the emergency management department that does that, I did in Coogan County.
Okay. Well, thank you for giving us a brief update here. I wanna see if we have any questions from anybody at the table or anybody in the audience. Just, anybody have any further? You probably already have all your questions answered, so.
Pretty much. We talk pretty regularly.
Okay. Well, seeing none, I'm sure we're gonna get with you and talk more about all of this. And so if I'm understanding it right, for an action item here, Dan is the one that would be working on the,
Hazard mitigation plan with Bill,
Plan
though, I mean,
with
they
Bill.
would work together, yeah.
Yeah, the last time they did this, they brought a group together. And there was probably 10 to 15 people in that group that worked on that plan.
They usually do it through the LEPC, which Dan holds those meetings on a regular basis.
oh, that's right,
and
yeah, he told us
The
about that.
public are involved in that too, so they identify concerns that they might have.
Okay.
Hotspots, okay.
Right.
All right.
Fire, flood, I mean, there's all
All
kinds of
those
hazards.
possibilities.
Yeah, could be a railroad station, blow up.
Okay, well, thank you, appreciate it,
Appreciate it, thank
appreciate the information, look forward to working with
If you ever have questions, just let me know.
you. You're
Okay.
over there where you are, above the blackboard.
Okay.
All right,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Gonna close this meeting for a few minutes and then we'll start another one.